I'm going to break down the Baylor women's volleyball roster for the 2025 season, as well as give my take on the ceiling and the floor for this team. Apologize for looking down because I cannot memorize all this stuff. So there are 4 seniors, and albeit you never know with the JUCO ruling, because there is like one more, there is a player that went JUCO prior to Syracuse. So if there's another Diego Pavia thing, there's a potentially another year of eligibility. You never know. And hopefully Gabrielle Essex does recover from her knee injury from a year ago. So if she does not play, she might come back another year. I don't know. So just want to clear that up. 4 juniors, 5 sophomores, and 4 freshmen. So it's fairly balanced on terms like the experience versus inexperience. There are 5 middle blockers on the team, and that to me is the strength. I'm not just talking about the number of those top players, but when you look at the classification, every single one except one of them is either a junior or a senior. And the lone one is like Lauren Weesey, and she was the number 1 volleyball player in the state of Washington. So I'm not worried about that position at all, quite frankly. Hopefully they stay healthy. Now there's 5 outside hitters and 1 opposite. And to me, if you combine them both, they're like the second strength. Given the returners they have, for one, and what they brought in through the transfer portal and incoming freshmen as well. So based on like their resume and all this, so that to me is the second strength of the team, because it's pretty hard to like take down like the middle blockers from 1 to 2 when you have a lot of experience at that position. Now there are 3 setters on the team, and I would expect Harley Craig to get the nod to start. It's more like who's the direct backup, as in the number 2 option. And I get Harley Craig's a redshirt sophomore. However, she played 60 sets last year as a redshirt freshman and learned from Jackie Barrett Frazier, the starting center from a year ago, and she even played in place of her at times. So it's not like she's going into this year without any experience whatsoever, because she has experience. And she did also learn from Avery Carlson her true freshman year that she redshirted. So 2 great starters that she learned from. So, and I get Avery Carlson was at Texas last year after she left Baylor after her second year, and then now Avery Carlson's at SMU. So, point being, she's learned a lot from 2 great setters, and it's not like Harley Craig is some bad player. She was like number 19 in her graduation class according to PredVolleyball.com. So, a really good player that could step up. And there are like 3 defensive specialists as liberos, which to me it's going to be a battle between Tahani Elefatu, and she's got a lot of experience, in Morgan Madison. That's just my opinion. Who's going to get the nod to start? That is the biggest question. Because I have a hunch on the other stuff. It's more like that's the biggest question to me for this year and everything like that. And I know there's Taylor Crane as well and Morgan Madison. So it's really going to be interesting what is going to happen there. So yeah. And I'm going to just mention this up front. The Big 12 has not released the preseason poll for this sport. But will they even do that? I don't know. To make things even more clearer, it's not like the Big 12 is the ACC or the Big 10 in women's volleyball. They're not. Maybe even worse than SEC. And I get there's only 15 of them, schools that have this sport. So not all 16. But that's besides the point. When you look at last year's results in the NCAA tournament, no teams made a Sweet 16 or further. It is a gettable conference. And that's despite 3 teams having hosting the first 2 rounds. And Baylor was one of them, in Arizona State, and Kansas was the other 2. So it's not like some amazing league by any means. Though it is competitive. I'll say that. And Kansas is dealing with a new head coach. And I know I kind of did a schedule breakdown, but you get the whole point here. So, yeah. So, hopefully Grace Carroll does stay healthy, because she did play some last year as an opposite at times in place of like Ali Check. But then she got hurt. She didn't play for a bit, and then she played again. So hopefully she does stay healthy. We need her to, and hopefully Victoria Davis steps up a whole nother level, and she was really good last year when you look at the numbers. So yeah. And they're going to be tested early, because before the regular season starts on August 29th, they actually have like a green versus gold scrimmage against themselves, and then they actually play Texas A&M at Texas A&M as a practice game. And I'm going to say this right now, Texas A&M is preseason picked 3rd in the SEC, right behind Kentucky and Texas. So they're going to be battle tested prior to the first game. So I'm not so worried going into the first weekend. Yes, I get they have to play South Alabama, but they really should win that game. And it's a neutral site, and same thing goes for LSU. And LSU, when you look at the preseason poll, they're not as high as the other teams. And it's more like SMU is a toss-up. And it's kind of another Avery Carlson reunion game. She played against Baylor last year in Waco. And now this year she's going to play them as a neutral site. And SMU did lose a lot of pieces. And not only that, they didn't even make it to the Sweet 16 last year, despite hosting the first 2 rounds either. So this is a true toss-up. And I'll go over like the players to keep an eye on all this for that when it gets closer. And I know I'm going to base it on last year's stuff, as well as I mentioned some notable transfers and everything like that. But you get the point. And Florida is doing with a new head coach, and she's actually going to work for ESPN. So that's a toss-up right there a little bit. And it's Texas at Texas, which is not easy by any means. And I get Texas was not the same Texas when compared to the past, because they only made a Sweet 16 last year, and nobody on this schedule for Baylor made it to Sweet 16 or further. So as a Sweet 16, that's it. So yeah, just something to note. So in terms of the ceiling, NCAA tournament-wise, I think it's a Sweet 16, maybe Elite 8, depending on the matchup. And hopefully they don't have to be like a 4 seed or a 5 seed and play the 1 in the Sweet 16 if they get to that point. Hopefully not if they do get there. And I really do think the talent's there based on the resume and returners. And I get losing Alicia Andrew hurts and Ali Check hurts. But you look at the other players around them, and from what it seems like, Ali Check was like a academic thing. Maybe same thing goes for Alicia Andrew. But even the loss of Alicia Andrew was negated with the transfer from Syracuse and the Florida transfer. And it's not even mentioning Lauren Reese coming in as a freshman, and there's obviously Victoria Davis coming back. So I'm not so worried, even if the loss is there, I know. So yeah. Now, conference-wise, what's the ceiling? it is a gettable conference to win, especially without Texas in the conference again for the second year in a row. It's not like the Big 12 was like the ACC or the Big 10 in volleyball or even like the SEC a little bit. Let's just be real. Like I said earlier, no teams made a Sweet 16 last year. None. Some teams do lose more than others. So I think the ceiling is to winning the conference. I really do think that it's possible. Now the floor. I really highly doubt they're going to miss the NCAA tournament. But you never know. It's a lot of newness. So that to me is the floor of missing the NCAA tournament. But I really highly doubt it. So really, in essence, I would say around a 64. I don't know about losing in around a 30. But even then, that might be a little bit low. I just don't know with these new faces they have and how they're going to gel and everything like that. Now, in terms of the Big 12, like I said, it's a gettable conference, but it's a gettable conference for other teams like Kansas, TCU, Arizona State, BYU, Utah. So, and even Arizona. They won basically the NIT of volleyball last year. So, it's really 6th or 7th in the conference. But here's the good news. Out of the best teams that play twice, the best one is like TCU, but you have to play in Fort Worth at the very end of the year, and you get to play them at home too. But you have to go on the road to Arizona and Arizona State. That's not easy at all. But at least you get to play BYU and Waco this time, unlike the last 2 years. And you get to play Utah at home. And now, hopefully both of those are like revenge wins right there down the line. And honestly, Iowa State, we got to find a way to beat them again. And there's Colorado. And pretty much the teams that they should beat. Kansas State, you're going to have to play twice. But Kansas State did defeat the ranked teams last year. So, it's not going to be like some pushover. So, we're going to have to wait and see. But I do think this year's team is going to build for next year. What am I exactly saying? When you look at the 2026 recruiting class, and I get letters of intent have not been signed yet, and players could get out of those. I get it. However, they have 6 players coming in as freshmen for the 2026 class, and they're one of the best recruiting classes, not just in the Big 12, but nationally. So, I do think with those 6 incoming freshmen, potentially as soon as they're signed with our intent, they're going to get back to the Elite 8. Maybe Final Four again. I don't know about national title. I don't know about that because, the Big Ten is very, very tough. And the ACC is tough. But you never know. That's why we play the games. The games here and all this. And hopefully if they beat SMU as a neutral site, that would really help the NCAA tournament resume. And obviously the same thing goes for Texas at Texas. But Baylor's never won in Austin in this sport. But being Florida, that would really help. So winning at least one of those 3 big non-cons, if not 2 of them, and obviously if they win all of them, they're really helping themselves to set themselves up for a higher seed in the NCAA tournament. And hopefully they don't have to be like a 4 seed and we have to play a really good 5 seed. And Dayton was a sneaky team last year as a 5 seed, but you get the whole gist of it. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. And I wanted to go over it now because the practice game is literally on August 9th against themselves. And then August 20th, they play Texas A&M at Texas A&M. So they're going to be battle tested. And hopefully they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat and knock on, like a South Alabama. I would think LSU should be a win. Northwestern should be a win. St. Mary's is a win. Rice, I think Baylor should beat them, especially at home. They've owned them the last few years. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. So anyways, if you like this content, hit the like, subscribe button. See you guys later on the road to 800 subscribers. Of course, ultimate goal is 1,000 more. Send my money to those cars. Like a video, comment video really helps YouTube algorithms. Some more people see it. Sharing the video does help as well. Some more people can watch. Thank you for watching. And not subscribe, hit subscribe button, free notification bell as well. And I'm being realistic. Forget Final Four talk until maybe next year or the following year. But obviously, if they get to the Elite Eight, anything could happen. Because what if you play a 4 seed instead of a 1? Or a 4/5 seed instead of a 1 in the Elite Eight game? You never know. But we'll have to wait and see.